Hey everyone, Molton here. Welcome back to another rapid game in our series where we play rapid games. I talk you through my thoughts and ideas, and we'll have a look afterwards in the analysis. So here again we have a d4 opening, knight f6, knight f3, d5. Let's go pawn to c4. Okay, so pawn to e6. Let's try knight c3 this time. Pawn takes. So this is a line of the Queen's Gambit accepted. So we have a few options here. We can play pawn to e3. We can play pawn to e4, which is slightly more aggressive. There's a really aggressive line here for black after pawn to e4 where he can play the move pawn to b5 and it gets really sharp. So we can go into that. Also can play g3. I'm just going to play solid this game. Play the move pawn to e3. So pawn to a6. So yeah, this position, black is threatening to play the move pawn to b5. So I'm going to play pawn to a4 here. Pawn to c5 for black is usually how they would respond. So the reason why I didn't want to take the pawn there on c4 was because I give black a very valuable tempo with the move pawn to b5. And I think the line after b5, bishop retreats, and then c5, or bishop b7, c5 is very comfortable for black. So I think a4 is the better option, but it does weaken a lot of squares. And the way black typically takes advantage of it is playing the c5 move, because later on when the knight comes to c6, it can hop into this b4 square and sort of control this d5 outpost where it sort of blockades our most likely isolated pawn on d4 later on. So b6. So we'll just capture the pawn. Bishop to b7, and we can just castle here. Maybe play queen to e2 as well as an option. c5 is coming next move. I think I'll just castle first. So these Queen's Gambit accepted positions are typically very solid for black. She's going to follow through with knight d7 and pawn to c5. So the way we usually get counterplay here is we're looking for some sort of e4 pawn push in these positions. So if we can get in the move pawn to e4 and then maybe like e5 or d5 at the right time, then we can definitely generate some counterplay. Now the first thought I'm thinking is, why can't we play the move pawn to e4 straight away? So if pawn to e4, what happens after knight takes e4? Well, we have knight takes e4, bishop takes e4. Can we play rook e1 there? Maybe. I'm not 100% convinced, because he has moves like bishop to b4 even after he captures our knight. So it's not completely convincing. If e4, knight takes, bishop takes, can we play pawn to d5 instead? Probably not, because like bishop takes, knight e5 looks like a strong reply for black. unless we have queen e2, knight takes c4, pawn takes e6. And can we sacrifice a piece there? It's sort of hard to believe that something like this would work. I mean, the knight could probably just retreat, and if we take, he takes back with the king. Yeah, that's very, very risky. If we go queen e2, he plays the move pawn to c5. Maybe then we play rook d1. I'm gonna do that. Seems a lot safer because I just can't get e4 to work. So we'll play queen e2 first. So we're prepping the move pawn to d5 next move. E4, pawn to e4, and pawn to d5 perhaps. So if bishop to d6, we're definitely playing the move pawn to e4. But the bishop b4 is a really good square for the bishop because we sort of weakened our queen side a little bit. So he goes for the move pawn to c5 instead. Now I'm thinking rook to d1 to immediately put pressure on this d file. Taking doesn't really make any sense to me. Pawn to e4, I'm a bit worried of moves like pawn takes, knight takes, and then discoveries with the knight where the queen will hit my knight on d4. So I'm going to go rook to d1. If he takes, I'm fairly happy here because after takes, we get the isolated pawn, but most likely we're going to be able to push through with the move pawn to d5 and exchange off or get rid of this isolated pawn next move. Queen to c7. So now we can play the move pawn to d5 here and exchange off a bunch of pieces. Takes, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, and then knight f6. So that might be an option. We drop our rook back. Maybe bishop to d6 and then pawn to e4. Castles. Pawn to e5 I think is working there. So that does look quite strong. So if pawn to d5, pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, knight f6, I go rook back to d1. And now if his bishop goes to e7 to develop, then I play this quick e4. And then let's say castles, I can play the move pawn to e5. And his knight's a little bit short on squares. Now if the knight goes to d7, I have to move pawn to e6, which looks very, very strong. And also I like the fact that the pawn there on a6 is unprotected. Of course he doesn't have to trade bishops. So after d5 takes, knight takes, he might just play knight f6, but then maybe I play e4 in this position. And I have ideas like bishop to f4 coming. And if he takes, I take back and I get like this annoying passed pawn. So I quite like this option. So let's go pawn to d5. The other option was maybe pawn to e4, but I didn't really like this one as much. Because I think again black just takes, knight takes, and gets a very comfortable position. So yeah, I think he has to take, otherwise we play e4 next. So if queen moves, we play e4. If knight takes, we go into the variation we looked at just before, which I'm fairly happy with. Take. So if bishop takes, we take back. Yeah, knight f6. This rook check I don't think does anything, so we're going to ignore this rook check, because after rook check, bishop e7, I don't see any follow-up there. So I'm just going to bring the rook straight back. The goal here is to play e4, e5 to really disrupt black's development. So yeah, he can get castled with bishop move and castles, but then we play e4, e5. And yeah, with this pawn hanging, it's a little bit better for us, because I feel that he can't play rook d8 because rook is stuck defending there. So yeah, after bishop here, I thought we played the move pawn to e4, and now we're threatening the move pawn to e5. If castle long, then pawn to e5, and if rook to e8, we can capture the bishop, and then he can't take our queen because his queen is also being attacked. This was the whole point of the variation. So now at the very least he can't castle straight away, so he has to deal with the threat. If knight d7, then I think we can play e5 there. If knight to g4, so I'm thinking after knight to g4 we can also play e5 here, because we have a lot of possible tactics. For example, after e5, queen e4 is a tactic. After, let's say, bishop takes, queen e4, hitting the rook and hitting the knight. That looks really, really tempting. We probably have a bunch of other tactics as well in this position. So after this takes, maybe just h3 is probably winning. This knight takes, there should be something there as well, like rook, maybe rook takes bishop, or maybe just knight takes f4. It's probably a much easier solution. So yeah, let's go e5 here. And you also want to open up his king while the king is still stuck on e8. We don't want the king to get castled. We want to look for attacking opportunities while we have them. So yeah, he moves the bishop, and now I suppose I can play the move queen to e4. He has the move rook to e8, rook to d8, and then this would cause me some back rank threats which I have to deal with. Is there anything better? So if h3, the knight goes to h6, I take it. So that's definitely better for me. But queen e4 here, can I play like bishop f4 in that position? Maybe, perhaps. So what's the most accurate way here? Queen e4, bishop f4. Looks like the most tempting one. Yeah, so I want to play queen e4. And then I want to go bishop f4. I can always chase the knight back with h3 and then force it to go to h6 and then capture. But I sort of want to create some threats with the king still stuck in the center. So he has to go rook d8 now. Oh, queen c8. I didn't actually see that one. So I have the move pawn to e6 here, which is quite strong at first glance. I also have the move pawn to h3, knight goes back, I just capture. Part of me really likes pawn to e6. Because the idea of if pawn takes, the knight's hanging. If the queen takes, I take the rook. Otherwise, I'm going to take an f7. And then his king won't be able to castle. So we'll go for pawn to e6. Also, we're running low on time here, so it's probably the best practical decision. Okay, so the king can't castle, so I'm fairly happy with this. Yeah, knight f6, I think we can just take here, we check. And I think we follow up with the move knight g5 check. Once he moves the king to take the pawn. If it doesn't take the pawn, then I mean, we should be fairly happy there. Yeah, I don't think he'll take the pawn. That's what I thought. So where do we move our queen? I want to keep this queen on like a active square. At the same time, I want to be safe. Queen e2 sort of threatens rook e1 in some positions. Gonna do that. So maybe now the idea is bring the bishop to f4. Or maybe some knight maneuver into e6. I think probably just bishop f4 first. We definitely have to be a bit accurate here, because if we allow him to just freely take the pawn on f7 and then get his king sort of artificially castled to safety, then we can find ourselves in a little bit of trouble. So we want to be accurate here. Okay, so what's his threat? His threat's to go queen e4. Can I play bishop g5 to stop this? So bishop g5, if queen e4, we take, knight take, take, king take, rook e1. Do that. If he plays h6, he weakens his position, and g6 becomes a lot weaker. Play bishop h4. If h6. King takes is met by knight e5 check and queen c4. Or knight e5 check, king moves somewhere, bishop takes, and some piece coming to d7. Looks very strong. Yeah, so bishop d8. So can I just play knight e5? So we defend the pawn here, and maybe we threaten some ideas with knight check here. This pin is also annoying for him, so you can't really get rid of this. Okay, so he plays this move. So I want to unpin, so let's go queen to f3, unpin, and also attacking at the same time. I'm going to play rook e1 next. Queen here also looks very strong. Okay, do we have any mating threats? Probably not. Okay, I just improved my position with rook d1. Maybe some bishop f4, queen f5 next. Yes, queen f5. Yeah, we can't spend forever on our moves. Well, otherwise we'll lose on time. Yeah, rook comes across. Let's just go queen e6. Not sure if this is the most accurate way. It's probably not. Allow rook d6. Yeah, probably should not have allowed rook d6 there. So rook takes. Okay, let's just take it. So is there a simple win here? Probably not. Queen comes back. Okay, let's go queen check. Bishop back. Let's play h3. I think we missed a few wins there. Could have just taken maybe and just gone knight c4. But don't want to get back ranked. Okay, so next move I think we can take and then go knight d7 check. Maybe, oh no, takes, he goes pawn takes, so I don't even think we can do this. No, we have knight c4. So takes. Can we go bishop e3? Then bishop takes here, perhaps? This is getting quite tense. Bishop f4. Need to stop trying to look for a clear win. Okay, rook takes e4 should be winning now. Okay, so we have check. Just move up bishop. Okay, so I suppose we bring our queen back to f5. Guess we can move our knight. And the next move we play bishop check. Bishop check, and then king here. We have rook to h4 check. Is probably the simplest way to win the queen. Unless there's a mate here. I think there's a mate after queen e6 check. And then here we have the move pawn to g4. Okay, good game. That was really tense at the end there. Okay, let's have a look at the game. So we had this variation of the queen's gambit. So e3, a6. Yeah, so I was just saying, like, if you go pawn to e4 here, then he plays the move pawn to b5. And then after e5, knight d5, knight takes b5, knight here. It gets really, really complicated. So I went for this line instead. But this one, it's quite solid option for black. Typically they go pawn to c5 here. But in the game, we got this. So I think we're still following some games here. c5. Bishop to b4 I thought was probably slightly more accurate. And then black just gets castled straight away. After the move pawn to c5, rook to d1. Here, wonder if there's any games after d5. So there are a couple of games here. Bishop takes... Also, it doesn't actually like bishop takes d5. It reckons e4 is much stronger. I did not even consider e4 here. So why is e4 so strong? So e4 castles queen side is given as the best move. So what happens after knight f4? Then we have the move bishop takes f7, king d8, queen e3. Wow, and it's already like +6. So yeah, this line I did not even consider. I probably should have spent a bit more time on e4. Actually, no one's played e4 in this position. That's really, really strange. Including two 2600 grandmasters. Even on Lee Chess, everyone just plays bishop takes d5. So that's very, very interesting. If you get into this position, e4 is apparently the move. And the most natural move here in the position, bishop takes d5, is given as a double question mark. And black is fine now. So this is quite amazing. And here, bishop d6. Yeah, so I think bishop d6 was probably a slight mistake because it sort of allows this. I think he has to go bishop to e5 here. And white has a slight advantage here. After, let's say, takes, and then pawn to f3, castles bishop to e3 because of the bishop, but black should be okay there. But after the move knight to g4, and then after the move pawn to e5, now I think white has a clear edge because the king's going to be stuck in the center. I was quite happy with e6. Queen c4. Okay, this was all fine. And yeah, apparently there's just a lot of wins here, but yeah, we were very low on time. And there's a mate in 8 apparently. Really? So after check, king takes, rook takes e7. Okay. King takes e7, bishop takes, king goes to e8, queen check. Okay, so now the king is sort of stuck, right? Here we go check, here, check, here, and checkmate. So yeah, we missed that, but that's okay. I think we can be forgiven, and I think the rest was fine for white. So I hope you enjoyed this game. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next game.